Imagine if somebody tells you that you might have to move to another city. Okay, let's say that you live in a city for a long period of time, or maybe your whole life. And then, all of a sudden, you have to move to another city. What would you do? Now, let's remember that the trustworthy arrangement, Nehemiah had to prepare God's ancient people for the inauguration of Jerusalem wall. Well, that's what happened on Nehemiah's day. When Jerusalem wall was completed. But then another urgent matter comes up and needed their full attention. Families were asked to leave their hereditary possessions and move to Jerusalem. Let's all read Nehemiah chapter 11, verse 1. That's Nehemiah chapter 11, verse 1. And it reads, "Now the princes of the people were living in Jerusalem, but the rest of the people cast lots to bring one out of every 10 to live in Jerusalem, the holy city, while the other 9 stayed in the other cities." Jerusalem now is inside of the walls with 12 gates, and it needed a larger population. Now, there were some Israelites that lived in the city, but the city was wide and greater. Just so you can have an idea, the city was a little less than 300 acres, or the size of Green Lake in the United States. But in that time, the city had only 4,500 inhabitants and covered only 30 acres. So the population was not enough. To solve the problem, the people bid to bring one out of every 10 living in other cities to live in the holy city. And guess what? The response to this arrangement was so good that moved the people to bless all the men who volunteered to live in Jerusalem. What an example. What an example for the true worshipers today, who do anything to move where the need is greater. Now let's read Nehemiah chapter 11, verses 2. That's Nehemiah chapter 11, verses 2. And it reads, "Moreover, the people blessed all the men who volunteered to live in Jerusalem, leaving all their possession to move to Jerusalem had to result in an expense and certain disadvantages. Also, the people be exposed to various dangers, but most of them view the volunteers as praiseworthy and pray to Jehovah would bless them. Those who were willing to make such sacrifice were blessed." Let's read our last scripture, and that's Malachi chapter 3, verses 10. Malachi chapter 3, verses 10. And he reads, "Bring the entire tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house, and test me out, please, in this regard. Jehovah of armies says, to see whether I will not open to you the floodgates of the heavens and pour out on you blessings until there is nothing lacking. When we decide to dedicate our life to Jehovah, we have to be ready to do Jehovah's will unreservedly. We know that to live by Jehovah's standards, it requires some self-sacrifice, especially when we are put to the test, when we are asked to do things that we don't like. But if we serve God and make some sacrifices, the blessings will be bigger than any sacrifice we make. So friends, what blessings have you received for the sacrifices you made to serve Jehovah?